Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Java Talks. I'm your host, RJ Javangula, and today we're here with an amazing guy, Mr. Ro himself. Ro, tell us a little bit about yourself.
What's good, guys? If you guys know me from my channel, my name is Swifro or Ro, and
Link's going to be in the description.
I graduated with this guy right here just how many weeks ago? 2 weeks ago or something.
Probably.
And today we're going to be talking about the simulation theory, something that neither of us know much about, but it's just a theory that's like very debatable, if that makes sense. There's a lot of things to argue, agree, disagree, whatever comes to mind, we're gonna talk about it.
All right, so let's lay the foundation real quick. So, do you believe in the simulation theory?
I do believe in the simulation theory. First of all, to explain to you guys what the simulation theory is, it's basically the theory that we're living inside of a simulation. So when you're playing a video game, for example, Call of Duty character, right? You're playing as the Call of Duty character. It's as if someone else is playing it as us, and we're in the video game, but we have our own free will, and that's the simulation theory.
So, if you've seen The Matrix, kind of like that. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to toss this to you.
All right.
The ball's in your court. You're Michael Jordan. I'm LeBron James because I'm bigger. All right, let's do it.
All right. First thing I really wanted to talk about was the concept of, bro, like, do you believe in simulation theory? Like, what do you think about the whole like argument in general?
I think with the way the world's going, right? We have so many people that are going into AI.
Mm-hmm.
We have like Elon Musk, Microsoft, Apple. You have like Siri, right? Like that's their forefront project. You have so many people that are going into AI and like human consciousness, but technological.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen. Now, do I think we're living in one at the moment? I think that's up in the air. You know, what if we're the first generation and we're going to create the simulation for other people?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what if that's an option?
I got you.
So,
yeah. So like, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Vsauce. I was watching a Vsauce video on simulation theory, like way back, and he said the probability of us or me being reality is 1 billion trillion out of like one,
yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the possibility of me being reality. And just like in general, when I think about it, of course I want to be reality.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to be simulated. That's just like weird to think about and stuff too. That just makes me feel weird. But I think there's a very high probability of us living in a simulation.
But do you think you have a body somewhere and this is just your consciousness?
I think that...
Because then that argument kind of goes away because technically speaking, you are around, you know?
Yeah. So I think that it's just like one person or like one thing, whatever, like, you know, is technologically advanced enough to create these simulations.
Okay.
Is, I want to say... they make like one world and they'll just leave it.
Okay.
Because we have free will, or we seem to have free will.
Okay.
So when we get technologically advanced enough for us to make simulations of our own, we just keep adding onto it. So who knows if we are the first or if we're the trillionth simulation that we're all the way down the line. You know what I'm saying?
Here's my take on that though. In all of our... How old are you? 18?
Yeah.
So in our 18 years of life, right, has there ever been a moment where you feel discombobulated? Where you feel like something doesn't belong there? Where you feel like deja vu?
Okay, yeah. So coming to deja vu, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Mandela Effect?
Yeah.
Okay, so like that messes with me a lot.
Okay.
You feel me? There's a lot of things, especially because like I'm not from here. I moved to the Americas when I was 8. So I got to see like a culture of other sort, and then I got to see American culture too. So there are things that I remember specifically in India, for example,
Yeah.
that weren't the way that it was, that I always remembered it. And there are things that I've specifically remembered here that aren't the way that like I remember it. And it's so easily explained in the simulation theory if someone just wanted to like tweak a code or something, or like tweak something, you feel me? we don't even have the memory of us. Like, obviously, a video game character can't realize they're a video game character and try to come out of the video game. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, we can't even comprehend the fact that, like, if someone changes it, like, we could...
But what if you put that onto the idea that humans are fallible and we forget things naturally over time, right? Like with Alzheimer's and just mental degradation, like over time, right? What if you say that if we were a simulation, right, and we were like our consciousness was created by some external being, wouldn't our memories be more reliable? You know, because it's code. You know, code doesn't degrade over time.
But if we have the ability of free will, so what I'm gonna say is like, consciousness is something that's not like fully explained yet. Like even now, we fully don't exactly know what consciousness as itself is.
Okay.
Like we understand what thought is and stuff, right? But we don't know what the concept of consciousness is specifically.
Okay.
By itself. Like we don't. If we had that ability, I'm 100% sure we'd put it in some kind of game. But we don't know what that is yet and stuff. And I think it's that part that, you know, when you're technologically advanced enough, that they figured out and that they put into a human being or a person or, you know, us in general, that it makes us seem like we have free... Because if we have free will, we feel like, obviously, we're doing everything out of our own will, right? So, like, we wouldn't even come of the possibility of us being like, oh, we're simulated. Like, do we think, like, our memory is bad? Like, I mean, that's just a thing that's gonna come with everyone around us.
But is it actually free will if we're put into a specific circumstance, a specific world that's created, where our choices are a result of the specific environment that we're put in? Is that free will?
But if... Okay, so, like, you know how Sophie the robot or whatever?
Yeah.
Have you seen
She's
this thing?
creepy.
Yeah, it's really creepy, bro. So, Sophie the robot, for example, she's obviously coded to have many responses and a variety of things, right? And there have been times that I've watched a bunch of videos on her and stuff. There have been times that people have asked her questions and she gives like a really weird answer.
Kind of like Siri.
Yeah, like a really weird, creepy answer. But like Siri, there's like for Siri, like I've looked it up before because I was jailbreaking my phone and stuff. So like for Siri, like...
That's not something you should admit.
It's okay, guys. That was something that I was like looking up, where it was like, Sophie, some of the answers, even its creators were like, oh, like that's not something that we put in her code. Like she wasn't supposed to say that. So it was like, you know, if we do something that's like out of our own will, I just feel like that's, you know, I can't comprehend it technologically because like we're not to that point, but it's just something that's like they're already made, where it's just like they let you kind of do whatever you want.
So you let it grow and evolve over time.
Yeah.
Is basically what you're trying to say. So Sophie's code was originally inputted, but based on the circumstances that it faces, the code evolves so that it can give you better responses.
Basically.
And that's how like your autocorrect works and all that kind of stuff too. Like over time it learns, right? But that still goes back to the original thing where if we're put into a specific circumstance, right? Like Sophie goes into a bunch of different circumstances. But if we are, as a populace, put into this world, in the specific world, because if you create one simulation, then there's probably multiple simulations being created, right? Yeah. So if we're put into this specific world rather than another one, and we're here interacting with specific people that are being put there for a specific reason, is there free will? Because you're put in a group of people and
so there's free will in our sense, but there's not free will in the sense of whoever created us.
So you give them the idea of free will.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like imagine, think of it this way: ancestry simulation, right? Like
the genetic website?
No. No. Like very advanced civilization.
Okay.
They want to just see how like their ancestors worked.
Yeah.
And it's not like, you know, how exactly life happened, but they just want to see relatively how it could have advanced or relatively how it could have developed over time.
Yeah.
So another example would be, this is a terrible analogy, but Clash of Clans, right?
Video games are like along those lines.
Yeah.
I feel you. Okay.
Clash of Clans. you have the gold digging site or whatever. I don't even remember the game, but you have the gold digging site and the Exceler site or whatever that's called, and it builds up over time, right? And you just collect it over time. So like for us, they might have just started us off, and they just kind of need to check up on us once in a while, and maybe going back to the Mandela Effect in a way.
Okay.
When they check up on us, they kind of like accidentally touch something or like tweak something here and there, or like they want to make something better or like fix something in the code or whatever the case may be, even if it is code or not.
Maybe that's puberty. Maybe we're just leveling up.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe that's just another part of when they come back to check up on us. Like a video game, like, have you ever played Skyrim?
Yeah, I have.
So like something along those lines where you just put into the game, right? And then over time you kind of level up, right? You go shopping and you get more items and all that kind of things. But then again, there's still no proof that our technological advancements are going to be able to ever get to that point.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like we obviously, that's why it's like a very theoretical thing, right? That's why it's so up in the air, and like so many scientists just disregard it, even hearing about it and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just like we can't know if we're in a video game, and we can't try and come out of the video game. That's like the best analogy that I could come up with. It's like if we have a game, for example, Sims itself. If we have Sims, our Sims character can't even if they do realize it's a Sims character, they can't try and come out of our screen.
But the Matrix, have you ever seen the Matrix?
No, I've never seen the Matrix.
So in the Matrix, he's put into the simulation by robots further down the road, and once these people like realize that things aren't right, Lawrence Fishburne, also known as Morpheus in the movie, comes and like takes you out of it. So you're no longer in the simulation as soon as you realize that something's wrong.
But it's someone on the outside that brings you out, right?
But you have to feel like something's wrong. You have to feel like the world itself, that there's questions that need to be answered. So then you become unplugged.
But don't we already feel like that?
Exactly. So why can't we get out?
Because no one wants to pull us out, right?
But technically speaking, if you feel that something's wrong, then they're alerted to your presence. And the simulation theory has a lot of following, right? Yeah. I was watching this video this morning where it had 6 million people that watched it. So if you have that 6 million people, right? 6 million people that feel like something's wrong. And especially with like social media, with what we were talking about yesterday, where you kind of create that mob mentality. So many people gain traction with this, so that eventually, if enough people in a simulation feel like something is wrong, then that simulation has to fail. You have so many variables that are becoming twisted that the simulation has to fail. Is that why there's so many hurricanes? Is that why there's so many natural disasters?
Yeah, as you said earlier, like off the camera, we were talking about this just a tiny bit. And as you said earlier, it's like the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
It's like
one little thing.
Yeah. So if something happens, then like, it's going to snowball effect and then keep happening. Another thing I wanted to bring up, when we were talking about like the whole creation and God and stuff like that, it's just like the concept of God, right? I'm Christian, so I do believe in God. First things first, I'm not trying to offend anyone. But it's just like, it's also very easily explained. Or like, you can comprehend it a lot better
if we're in a simulation.
Yeah, if you like accept a simulation theory of sorts. Cause like technically, any like mythology or actual like religious texts or anything like that. Yeah, it's like God created us and He's watching over us, right? Yeah, that's basically the thing, right? Whether it may be monolithic or polyolithic, that may be the case. And if that's the case, and there is like God watching over us, that so-called God, right, in a sense, could be like a simulated, not simulated, my bad. The person that created the simulation. You understand what I'm saying?
So you're saying that there is some kind of external person named Jesus.
Well, I'm not saying in specific there's an external person named Jesus. I'm just saying in general.
I'm just saying like an example.
Okay,
like a possibility where some person named Jesus created the simulation and he inserted himself as the most popular God in the world. Right? Christianity is the most popular religion in the world. And I mean, technically, Jesus like lived among us or whatever. Yeah. So I get what you're saying. It's like God created us and then like made Himself popular among us or whatever, and then left. But like, it's also we may have come to the realization that we're in a created world of some sort. Obviously, people are gonna, even when like way back in the day, obviously when we've been able to think of
questions such as why are we here,
Yeah.
things like that, or like what's our purpose here and things like that. People, if they want an answer to it, they're gonna make an answer to it. You get what I'm saying? If you go looking for a specific answer, you're gonna find it. That's like a thing.
You're gonna be able to justify anything.
Yeah, you're gonna be able to justify anything towards it. It's like me being a Kanye West stan. If I want to like, you know, find a reason of why Kanye did the stupid things he did, I'll find it. But like, it's not gonna be good, but I'll find it. So it's just like, it's saying things like that. So if we wanted to find something, and I feel like, you know, although I do believe in it, obviously, we may have just made it just so like we're at a peace with ourselves. You feel me?
But when I think of the simulated reality argument, I think of like the flat world argument, you know?
Oh, yeah,
the flat Earth.
I get what you're saying, yeah.
Because eventually you're going to have to hit a point where the creation is over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I forgot who exactly was talking about it, but it's impossible to like legitimately create everything that there would be in a universe, right? That's just not possible. Yeah. And eventually, like with the flat Earth, eventually you have to come to the edge of the world, right? That's why I think a lot of flat edge people are wrong, because you can't.
Yeah, you can't go.
You can go around the Earth.
Yeah.
But with the simulated reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where is the edge?
Okay, so this is a thing that like I kind of put together myself, but I also like watched in a couple videos and stuff. But the universe is constantly expanding, right? Every 5 seconds it expands about like
theoretically,
of course. But
the moon landing was fake.
Shut up. I don't want to hear this shit. But about like every 5 seconds or something, it's supposed to be approximately like 40 seconds, theoretically, right?
Theoretically.
40 miles, 40 miles is how much the universe is supposed to be expanding. So in the time we spoke, it's supposed to be vastly expanded. But what if that's just like someone hit like, oh, go simulation kind of thing? And go simulation kind of thing. And, you know, the simulation is still loading up. So when the universe finishes loading up, that's when the simulation comes to an end. And that's when we created our own simulation. You understand what I'm saying?
But when does it end?
We don't know when it ends.
When does it start?
It started...
Because
in our theory, it started at the Big Bang.
Exactly, but... So, think about it like this. At what rate would our world have to be living in order for that world to not have a significant amount of time to have elapsed over like the course of
time is just a concept,
right? So like like you said, like in a couple seconds, like the universe expands 40 miles, right?
Yeah.
If you went over 100 million years, right? The 100 million years is just from like when we left Africa, the whole out of Africa theory. So over 100 million years, that could just be an hour in that world, in the world upstairs, you know? Yeah. Or it could just be like a couple of days, you know?
Yeah.
So if you believe in the simulated theory, doesn't that make our life kind of useless?
It does.
Because we're just basically seconds of a video game at this point.
Yeah. However, if you... So this is like something that I want to say in general. If you think about it in that sense, where it's like, oh, if we're simulated, why don't we all just give up and like kill ourselves or something? Like if you think of it in that sense, then like that's a failed simulation at that point. But you knowing you're a simulation really isn't gonna do much for you. Like if we figured out, yes, we're a simulation, we're still gonna advance the same way. We might try and figure out, oh, how are we simulated and stuff. But as I said, it's just never going to be possible for us to come out of the video game.
But that's just like a hamster running in the little treadmill
thing,
right?
Exactly.
Like, you're always going to be chasing your own tail, basically, because you can never figure out how you're simulated.
Yeah.
Like, so, your brain can't comprehend
So that's just something that, like, you know, if we do know that we're simulated, in a sense, right? Because we can't 100% know we're simulated ever. So if... not ever. I don't want to say ever, just because, like, you know, if we do create our own simulation way, way down the line, then, like, obviously we'll know it's possible.
Yeah.
But at this moment, if we do, like, I'm not saying come to terms with the simulation theory or anything like that, because it's kind of stupid to me in a way. But at the same time, a lot of things, like, make sense with it. And it's just, when I think about it in the sense, like, if I come to terms with it or whatever, it's really not going to change much for me. If I come to terms with, yes, I'm living in a simulation, I mean, what am I gonna do next? Like, there's just, okay, I'm in a simulation. Like, that's my way of thinking at least. Maybe if Elon Musk, right, 100% believes like he's in a simulation, right?
Which he probably does.
Yeah,
He's a pretty weird guy.
His genius self, he might figure out something that he wants to specifically do with it. But myself, at least, if I come to terms with it or whatever, okay, we're in a simulation.
But doesn't that beg that the simulated theory really is a front layer like topic for the bigger question, which is free will versus destiny.
Yeah.
Right?
It's also like, it's also a thing that's like, why are we here in a way? You know what I'm saying?
Like our purpose in the world.
Yeah.
Like that's something I've talked about in like all of our podcasts so far.
Yeah.
It's like the why, right?
Yeah.
So I guess this would go against like the ethical thing that you were talking or that you wrote. So ethically, do you think that putting someone in a simulation, either by their choice or against their like will, right? Do you think that putting someone in a simulation is a good thing?
Okay, so as douchebaggy as this may sound, right? I'm gonna say that I don't care.
Okay.
Just cause if I create a simulation myself, I know it's code. But, you know, at the same time, if I am a simulation, I know what I feel, to myself at least, is real, right?
Okay.
Or like what seems to be real to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, do I want people to go through the whole suffering of, you know, genocides and things like that when I go ahead and hit the button of like, you know, them actually feeling it?
Yeah.
I think at that point you're just going to have to kind of detach yourself from, you know, that it's a code or like it's a video game of some sort. If I don't want to call it, I don't want to keep calling it code because like,
I mean, that's what we have to be.
Yeah, it has to be some sort of code, but like it's just I don't want to keep calling it code just because like, I mean, maybe there's a different name for it down the line or something. But whatever it is, it's just like we're going to have to detach ourselves from it because we can't be emotionally invested in something that's, for us, is technically not real. For us, that it's technically just in a screen. You know what I'm saying? So like, this is a very sensitive topic, but there's a game that was going on about I think a week ago. It was on Twitter Movements, and it was someone created a simulated school shooting. Like, it was a video game.
Okay.
And you got to play the shooter, or you got to play the students, and you had to, like, either try and kill everyone, or, like, you had to try and stay alive the whole game as a student. Ethically, that's terrible, right? Obviously, that's so disrespectful to their families and stuff.
Insensitive thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's so disrespectful and stuff to their families and stuff. And that game, like, it did numbers. It did a lot of numbers. Just because people were, I guess, curious to try and find out, but it's messed up.
It's kind of like clickbait.
Yeah.
You click on something because it looks interesting.
So it's, like, messed up. Ethically, is that correct? No. But at the end of the day, is it a game? Yes. If we didn't have school shootings at all and someone made that game, would anyone care? No. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but let me take it what we're talking about off screen a little bit with that book I was talking about.
Yeah.
The Pendragon series. If you read it, shout out to you. But in this thing, right, they're all in this like simulation called Lifelight. Mm-hmm. And eventually, that was very loud. And eventually, the world itself dies because everyone's in this simulation, right? That's all they care about because as imperfect as this world is, it is an alternative to who knows what's going on up there, right? Is that good for the world? Is it good to have this alternate existence? Kind of like what I was talking about yesterday with social media. Is it okay to have an alternate form of existence when you're not currently tackling what's in front of you?
Okay, I got what you're saying. So it's basically like, you know, we're basically at that point, you know, going back to social media a little bit from yesterday. It's like us making multiple accounts and being able to show off a little bit.
Like having a fake Instagram.
Yeah, so it's like being able to show off, you know, your real self in your fake Instagram.
Yeah.
And then being fake on your real Instagram.
Yeah.
And then that's what you're saying, right?
So like in your real Instagram, you show that you're at a grad party. In your fake Instagram, you show that you're drinking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or like, you know, you might just, people do this all the time. You know this. It's like people are like, oh, I hate everyone here and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they'll like post that on their fake Instagram, but then they'll take a picture with everyone and they'll post it on their real Instagram and be like, oh, all my friends and stuff.
Happened a couple weeks ago. Not gonna happen.
For real. So like, you know, people do that all the time. So do I like...
Because a fake Instagram is basically a simulation.
Yeah, so like, do I think that's okay? I mean, like, I don't have a fake Instagram because
Okay.
I don't really care about it, and I'm like pretty real with everyone around me and stuff. So like, you know, if I don't like you, I won't talk to you and stuff. Like, I keep it pretty real and stuff. So like, do I think it's ethical to go ahead and have someone else go through the feelings and emotions of everything, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, yes and no. Just because it really depends. It comes down to whether if it's real in our sense versus their sense. If it's in their sense, then I couldn't care less. But if it's in our sense, then obviously I would care.
Because here's my take on it, right? I think the only way to actually create a workable simulation of this extent, you're going to have to actually put people, right? You're going to have to be able to transfer their consciousness into the simulation. Kind of like Black Mirror. I'm not saying the exact episode because I don't remember. But the only way you can actually allow this complex of a thing, because the brain is a very complex thing, right? Mm-hmm. And in order to create code that constantly like adapts like our brain does, I think will take a long time.
Yeah.
Just because we don't have the coding language for it.
Yeah.
So I think you physically have to put someone's consciousness, or at least transfer it, kind of into like this virtual reality, right? VR. Mm-hmm. And if you're doing that, then you're taking away that person's complete like actual reality, because now they're living in this VR.
Yeah.
So as real as the simulation might be, I really hope it isn't.
Yeah,
because that's kind of pathetic. You know, it's pathetic that people just can't face their real lives.
Yeah.
And I understand if you're like sick and you're dying and something like that, but at the end of the day, right? If you're under the age of 40 and you have a family back home and you're just in this VR because you don't want to go back home and deal with your kids and your spouse and all that kind of thing, that's just pathetic. And I hope that someone doesn't create a world where you can just escape like that.
Yeah.
Because that's my take on social media too, where if you're using social media as an excuse to not go out and work, to go out and start something like we did with our YouTube channels, or to go out and like create a positive influence in your community, then what are you doing with your life?
Yeah. That's like something that I strongly agree with, which is basically, I don't think social media or any platform of any sort should be used for malice intent or like something that you want to get yourself away from your real life.
But the thing is, if you support the positives of social media and like virtual reality and all that, you have to support the negatives too, because you can't create a universe.
No, when I say malice intent, I mean like to yourself. So I should have elaborated on that. So when I meant like, for example, instead of coming here today and doing the podcast,
right,
I just sat home and I like Snapchatted people like the whole day or something, you know, just trying to escape reality in a sense. That right there, that's something that I wouldn't agree with.
Yeah.
So, yes, I don't agree with that. If that's what you're going for.
Here's my thing, right? If you're using social media to endorse yourself, to promote yourself, to make yourself better, then you have to accept that you're going to use it to bring yourself down too. Because there can be no society, no civilization without negativity, without adversity, without obstacles. And I think that's why civilization is chaos, which is a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
Social media was created theoretically to like connect people, but you have to accept that social media, VR, all these things, even though they were intended to be good, has to have the bad in order for that to have value, right? Like you have to accept that there's going to be bad in order to admit that there's value. So why even create it?
Why even create it?
Why even create a social media or a simulation when you know that, like, a lot of people that complain that they're getting bullied on Twitter or like Facebook or Instagram and all that, like, what do you expect?
Yeah,
it's gonna happen, you know. Like that's why it's there, you know. It gives people the ability to kind of vent.
Yeah,
and that's why I don't like social media. If we created the simulation and you see people dying and you see all these kind of things happening, and you go to social media and you're getting bullied, you have no right to complain. You brought that onto yourself, right? So why even create a simulation or social media or any kind of like place where you have an alternate existence?
I got you. So if we're going into like why we're creating a simulation theory, or why would we want to create a simulation of ourselves, one, maybe we want to see how humanity progressed in the past, right? So if we're living in a simulation ourselves right now, and someone else is controlling us in a sense, they wanted to see how humanity progressed, right? If they're human themselves, if not, whatever the case may be, they just wanted to see how a certain civilization progressed, right? That may be one case. Another case is that we're a video game.
Okay.
That's pretty simple. Sad and simple explanation. And I think the last one would be, someone just wanted to do it just because they can, people do things just because they're curious all the time.
I just think it's weird that we have so many movies and like books and stuff in our lives, right? That are all about this kind of like topic.
Yeah.
Which it's like Inception.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a dream within a dream within a dream.
Oh my goodness.
Right? Where you have like, if we're a simulation ourselves, right? And we're watching a movie where a person's having a dream,
Yeah.
where they're on a computer, and in that computer they're watching a TV,
Yeah.
and in that TV they're doing something like a radio. Imagine how many layers that is.
Yeah.
Right? This is Inception. This is. It's just wild, right? Like, how complex of an algorithm did someone create in order for this? They had to create something basically like the brain.
Yeah.
We have to be living in a brain where something can go so complex.
So, continue.
I'm just blown away, but because imagine how many layers you have to go to be able to think about someone dreaming,
Yeah.
and then watching a TV and going on a computer and going into a radio or something like that.
Yeah. So, this is something like I was thinking myself, whereas like so I was watching another video about like computing power to be able to do consciousness, so to say, and so on and so forth. There's a concept, I think it starts with the M, I'm not sure exactly. It's basically where obviously this is not going to happen for a very long time, but
you never know.
It's basically where it's a computer that's set off of a star's radiation, and the computer itself is as big as a star, so it basically encompasses the star. It like closes the star, if that makes sense. So this is a circular microphone, right? Imagine like my hands closing it as a computer, you know what I'm saying? So that computer theoretically should be able to get our enough computing power for our brain, all those layers, even more, right?
That was like the video I was watching too, where it didn't need to be that big, but it did need to be significantly big.
Yeah. And there was also quantum computing power, or whatever. And those could be relatively small. Those could be like a building to this desk. And the first ones could be like as big as cities and stuff to try and simulate something, or like, to try and get so advanced or whatever. And we're going to, at one point, if we do stop technologically advancing, we're gonna die off. That's a given. If we don't technologically advance any further, one, we're not gonna really have a purpose of any sort. Because technologically advancing, when I'm saying like, I'm not only talking about computers and things like that.
Like standard living and all that.
Yeah, I'm talking about just inventing in general.
Yeah.
If people lose obviously curiosity to like invent, or just in general try and find things out, there's really gonna be a lack of purpose and motivation.
Yeah.
And people are just not gonna have the will to live. They're just gonna die off, right? But so like there's gonna be, if we are a simulation and there's a certain cap set in the simulation, then we're gonna die off when we hit the cap, and that's basically, that could be when we can't advance any further, right? Or that could be if there is no cap, we could continue advancing and we could create our own simulation in a sense. So when we're going to code in specific or whatever, what so this is like very hard to explain, and it's kind of trippy when you think about it, where it's basically when I'm looking forward, right? I technically don't know what's behind me. It's very implied. Like if I lean back, I know there's a chair behind me.
Yeah.
But there doesn't need to be a chair behind me until I hit the chair. You
So
understand?
it's
what I'm saying?
empty until you actually hit it.
Yeah, but for you, it's gonna be there because you're looking this way, right? So, me, I could just be a hollow, like, body.
Until you open it.
Yeah, technically. So until I press myself or open it or anything like that, I could technically be a hollow piece of code.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're gonna obviously have to work way into.
Circumstantial coding, yeah.
Very, very theoretical and stuff. And this is why many scientists don't even like talking about this.
Yeah.
Just because in a way, when you're talking about the simulation theory, it's like you're trying to escape the own reality that you're in, because you're talking about things that are just so far in the future and stuff that why are you even talking about it? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why many scientists get pissed off and stuff when they try and talk about it. But in a sense, you're also gonna have to raise the question and have it be brought to light. So we could try and figure out, or we could try and technologically advance, because without the questions being asked, it's never gonna technologically advance.
Mm-hmm. See, when I hear people talk about the simulation theory, right, it's like the same thing when I hear people say things happen for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's just people looking for an excuse to rationalize why they messed up on something, right?
Yeah.
Karma, things along those lines. I get that if that's your belief system. I know that karma is a big part of the Hinduism and all that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But people that look for outside things for their own mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they always say things happen for a reason, or things happen because some third party, some all-powerful being wanted that to happen, right? When I hear someone talk about the simulation theory, it's just an excuse, because it's not their fault that they're inferior, that they did something wrong. It's because they were put into this world like that, you know? And I think that when you say bring up the question, we need to bring up this question that, are we in a simulation? I think it's an excuse. I think it's an excuse, and I think it's something that's going to happen down the line. I still believe that we're the first generation that's going to create the simulation.
Okay. So you think
I don't think there's enough irregularities in our world at the moment for something that's in a computer.
Okay, but if whatever made us, in a sense, right, is complicated and has enough computing power to go ahead and create us, right?
But the show has to be...
Is there really gonna be a specific glitch, in a sense?
It doesn't necessarily have to be a glitch, it just has to be an irregularity.
Yeah.
Something that can't necessarily be explained.
I feel like there's a lot of things in the world that are not explained.
At this moment in our lives.
Yeah, at this moment in our lives, but that's what I'm saying, if we are a simulation, we'll figure it out.
But I do think if you're creating a simulation, you don't want them to be able to think that they're in a simulation. I think the moment that you start creating that, you created a failed simulation. And if you're creating something so complex that it envelops the sun, right, then the people in the simulation, right, the creations, aren't going to think that they're in a simulation. Unless we're the first trial and we're still trying to get it right. I do think that if we're for beings that are in a simulation, we have too much natural curiosity along subjects along this matter, you know? I understand if we're curious about the world and curious about other technological developments and things along those lines. But for people that you're constantly thinking about your creator, right? And you're constantly thinking about how you were being created, then you're creating a simulation that is eventually going to fail. Okay. So you can't allow your simulation to think that. Okay. Because if everyone thinks they're in a simulation, then like you said, a lot of them are going to quit, you know? A lot of them aren't going to see the point in living, and a lot of them are just going to quit. So if you allow your simulation to think that, and I think a system that's so powerful that it can envelop a sun, right, uses that power to create our brains, basically. If you create a simulation that powerful, then you're not going to be willing to allow your simulations, projects that you worked so hard for, to be able to fail itself.
Okay. So my question to you is, if you had the opportunity to create a simulation, how would you do it?
I would...
okay, so we're talking about everything. We're talking about let's like bring it back, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the ethical aspect. We're talking
Right.
about everything, code, everything like that. Them being, the characters having free will, everything like that. So, how would you create it? If you could create a simulation, how would you do it? What would you want the ideal simulation to be?
Well, you have to have you have to have the why, right? And you have to have the story to reach that why, right? So if you're talking about just allowing a human to just live, right? Like if you're trying to create a simulation like The Sims, you just want a normal life where they don't necessarily age or necessarily. You don't want them to be able to have the necessary the human like aspect to themselves.
Okay.
So you want them to thrive in their environment. You want them to be able to fail in their environment as well, but not fail to the point where they're questioning their creators, right? In our world right now, we have so much curiosity and so much doubt that a simulation is. If this was our simulation, then we're like the hamster in that little the ball thing where you're constantly chasing your own tail, where we have so much doubt that we take one step forward and two steps back. If you wanted to create a simulation where you want to reach your why, then you need to have a specific mindset. And our mindsets change so quickly and so variably that you need to be able to create a simulation where the characters aren't so flawed.
But isn't that something that we think at this moment? Like, we don't know why whoever created it created us with so much free will or the ability to question, the simulation itself. But what if they created it with a certain purpose in mind? As in, like, they might have created this simulation for the sole purpose of creating another simulation. So if we never ask the question of if we are in a simulation, then...
But then that's like I'm saying. So eventually you're going to have people that if that's their mission, it's going to fail. Where if you have too many people chasing...
When you say fail, do you mean like...
It's going to shut down eventually.
Like everyone's going to give up and just be like...
Basically.
Or do you mean like fail as in everyone's going to make their own simulation? Because if everyone makes their own simulation, they won at that point. As in, not won. Their like project is done at that point, in a sense.
But if you're in a simulation and eventually you begin to realize that nothing you do has substantial value, right? Mm-hmm. That you can make no actual change to the real world, then eventually people as a whole, like right now you said that you don't care, but eventually you're going to realize like 10, 15 years down the line that that's 10, 15 years that you just wasted, right?
But, okay, so...
That's a depressing thought eventually.
So, yeah. So this is the thing that I was thinking. 10, 15 years, right? As we were talking about like time and relativity and stuff. So 10, 15 years... For us, it was real.
Yeah.
For whoever created us, it's a game or a computer or whatever.
But still, within that 10, 15 years, even if it's seconds for whoever's up there, if we fail within that 10, 15 years, then you can't have a game after those couple seconds.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing past that point, right? So even if time is changing depending on where we are, like if we're in the simulation and if you're in the real world, eventually, if we all fail and we all like get depressed and we all just die, right? Because there's no point to our existence, then eventually that simulation is ultimately flawed. You have an an expiration date for it. Okay. Eventually people aren't gonna want to try anymore. So then everyone just gives up and everyone just dies.
Okay. So that's where I disagree. I feel like even if we do figure out we are in a simulation, we will continue to thrive.
For how long, though? I'm saying we're going to continue to go for like 5-10 years, but after that, you're going to realize that everything you do has no point. And purpose is the biggest thing in the world.
Yes, of course. So when it comes to that, I feel like we do have a purpose. Even if we are in a simulation, maybe our purpose, our end goal, our end purpose is to create our own simulation, right? And I don't feel as humans, we're ever going to lose that curiosity of a sense where it's not only for simulation, I'm just talking about for everything. We're ever going to lose a certain curiosity towards something in general.
But how many people are going to think like that? How many people are going to be...
That's true.
How many people are going to be willing to... If we're supposed to eventually all create our own simulation, right, then why are people going to college for like the arts or for like They want to go into like music and things like that. Like you can't. There's no avenue for you to create a simulation eventually, right?
Yeah.
So are those people just destined to just die out without any purpose? Because those are the people that are gonna fail. Because within 10, 15 years, if you realize that you're in a simulation,
I mean, their purpose is like, as bad as it may sound, their purpose is just like the extras. You feel me? Extras in like that. Like if you had to
breaking here, if you're in a music industry, you're an extra, according to Roe.
No, it's like an extra, as in the sense, for example, in a dance group, you know how there's extras in the back, right? So it's like, or even in a movie, there's extras in the background. There's like people.
But at this point, everyone's an extra in that movie.
But there's certain there's certain amount of us. Obviously, everyone in a sense has a purpose, and that purpose maybe you have to be an extra.
Which is what I'm saying. So eventually, if you realize that that's your purpose, then they're gonna quit, right?
And if they quit, maybe that's their purpose.
That many people? You can't tell me that if out of the world at this moment, like out of our 7 billion people approximately, that if 6 billion, 9 million, 9 or whatever the number is, I can't say it.
Yeah.
But like if there's 100 of us left, right?
Yeah.
There's no way we can cultivate the world enough to have the resources enough for those 100 people to create a simulation. Another one.
I agree and disagree.
That's a lot of people that are dying.
Yeah. But
in a world of this scale.
That's true. Have you ever watched The 100?
No.
Okay. So it's basically post-nuclear Earth.
Okay.
Most of civilization, as they think, they basically go up into space, and once they believe that Earth is habitable again, they'll send exactly 100 people back to Earth to try and habitate it.
Okay.
So like
I've seen the trailer for this on TV.
Yeah, so it's like it's possible, but it's gonna take a while.
So that's what I'm saying. So eventually, and how many of those 100 people in that TV show eventually gave up? Or just died?
Well, I mean, it's still going on. You feel me? It's still
a lot
going.
of them are gonna die.
It's still going on. A lot of people died, but they also discovered that there were people already on Earth. So so that's a different case. But
so either way,
in the sense, like the 100 people, they came down with the sole purpose of, we want to create stuff. We want to see if Earth is habitable and stuff like that. So it's just like 100 people. Yes, it's a very, very, very small sample size.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, we had to have started with 1 or 2 humans or whatever the case may be. We had to have started somewhere in our pool with a very, very few of us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not like we started out with 7 billion chimpanzees and we all just evolved or something. Or gorillas.
Either way, at the end of the day, if our purpose, like we don't know if we're extras at this point.
Yeah, of course.
So we could be extras, and which
I'm not an extra.
Yeah, let's be honest.
I'm not an extra. Come on,
So at this point, so many people have no purpose in life except for to just fail and die, right? So that's a lot of people. And from there, you have a few people that have to have the mental stability to see so many people around them fail and die to then go on and survive. So at the end of the day, I think there's going to be one survivor.
I feel like we've always done that, though.
Yeah, there's only going to be one survivor, and that's going to be the winner of the simulation. So I think 7 billion people are going to die, and there's going to be one person left. I think that's the point of the simulation.
If that's the point, that's the point. If he ends up creating a simulation, or if he's like the Ready Player One, have you watched the movie?
Yeah.
Ready Player One, like if he's the one that wins, then he wins.
You're taking a very go with the flow vibe with this.
What do you mean?
Someone's gonna die, or all of us are gonna die except for one person. You're kind of like whatever.
I mean, like bro. Okay. At the end of the day, not talking about like fate, free will, destiny, or anything like that. I was talking about like grandparents and stuff passing away and things like that. If it's a touchy subject, I'm sorry, guys. But I was talking about grandparents and things like that passing away. Okay, this is gonna sound so messed up and desensitized, but as bad as it may sound, honestly, like at a relatively, watching Indian movies all the time, right? At a relatively like younger age, I want to say, no age, you know what? Relatively younger age. Let's just keep it at that. I came into terms with like, from movies, I came into terms that if someone does pass away, right? it's gonna happen. Like, there's nothing that you can really do to try and prevent it. Like, at this moment, at least, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so it's something that you're just gonna have to.
Unless they just go into another simulation.
Yeah. So
where
it's
they
just,
again die over there because you're just another extra.
Yeah. So like, it's just, you can't hold on to something just because, you know, you don't agree with it, in a sense, you know? Like, that at that point, it's kind of being ignorant.
But you could also just argue that because of that reasoning, where you see something like death, and you don't agree with it, and that's why the simulation was created.
Yeah.
You don't agree with death, so you create an alternative to it.
Yeah.
Where it's like Black Mirror, where you just put their consciousness in this simulation,
Yeah, in a different...
and now they can just live through here, even though they're dead.
Yeah. So like, it's just, when you said like, you know, I'm in a very like go with the flow. I don't really like care about 7 billion people dying or something. It's just like, if it really comes down to it, and that's really what happens, what can I do about it? I can't save 7 billion people. Maybe I could save...
Well, apparently no one can.
Yeah, but maybe I could save like 100 or something. Like, that's a lot of people. I'm just saying. Maybe I could save like a handful, but...
I was just going to say, you're probably going to get like a Nobel Peace Prize if you do that.
Yeah, at that point, I'd be handing myself in.
Yeah,
like,
basically.
With everyone dead. But, no. It's just like, you're just going to have to go through it. You're just going to have to push through it. It's like, if you lose your sense of reality, if you lose your sense of hope and faith and your will to live, then you're the failed part. Then you're the glitch in the simulation, and then you're gonna be gone, obviously. And if that's 7 billion people, not up to me, but I guess so be it. As like ignorant and as a like mad as it may make people, if that's the case, then so be it. Cause I can't personally do anything about it. Cause I can't get out of the video game and then like say like, yo, chill out, don't kill everyone, and then like climb back into the video game or something.
So I think we just got the moral of the story. We're all about to die, and Ro's not gonna save you.
If that's the case, that's the case.
That's just sad thinking, man.
For real, bro. But yeah, honestly, like, if you know, shit happens. There's nothing you could do about it. I always, when my friends, for example, text me about relationships and shit, and they're like, "Oh, this is happening, blah blah blah." I just like, what happened. Like, there's really nothing you could do about it. You feel me?
I kind of disagree, because my whole thing is purpose. Even if there's something that you can't do about it, you have to go make sure you can do something about it.
Yeah. No, there's a sense of like, yes, you could go fix it, right? You could go patch it up, but it's already happened. You feel me? So there's nothing in specific. If 7 billion people die, you can't bring all 7 billion people back.
You just have to make more 7 billion people.
I'm trying to have 30 kids by the time I'm 30.
Whoa.
I'm joking. Chill out.
That should have been your senior quote.
Bro, honestly, bro, I'm pissed we couldn't make our senior quote ourselves.
That's a whole separate subject. Miss Simon, if you're watching this, because I know you watch it, love it.
Does she really?
Yeah.
Dang. Shout out to you, Miss Simon.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to say about this?
Yeah, I have one thing. I want you guys to leave a comment down below. What do you guys think about the simulation theory? Do you guys agree with it? Disagree with it? Do you think, as much as you would like to hate to admit, you know, that we do live in some sort of simulation, whether maybe God created us, so on and so forth. I know there's a lot of questions that this raises, whether it may be ethical, faith, reality itself, alien life and shit. Do you agree with it? Do you agree with it in the sense, do you think that we may be living in a simulation? Whether, you know, you've watched this video and given up the will to live. Hopefully you haven't.
We weren't that convincing.
But yeah, do you agree with us being in a simulation or not being in a simulation? Go ahead and leave a comment. Let us know. Tweet at us. And that's been it.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Ro's handles are going to be in the description. So is our website. Thanks for watching. I'm RJ Javangula. Stay tuned for more.